man, Donkey Kong Bananza sure looks fun. It's so nice to see DK finally get a new game after 11 years, doubly so that it's in full 3D. After all, before this, there's only ever been one Donkey Kong game in 3D, back when Rare had the reins of the series, in the form of Donkey Kong 64. And it sucked! This game released in late 1999 to glowing reviews. It sold really well too, being the N64's 7th best-selling game. Over time though, more and more people became aware of this game's many flaws. These days, DK64 is seen in a very divisive light, where some people love it and see it as the pinnacle of the N64 era, while others hate it and probably blame it for collectathons dying out. As you can tell, I'm on the side of the haters. I played this game for the first time shortly after Bananza's reveal a few months ago, to prepare myself for the new game. I played it to full 101% completion, and I did not like it. I don't even know why I went out of my way to fully complete it, even going back to get all the fairies after learning about the rare banana. I wouldn't go as far as to call this game terrible, but it's still a far cry from other platformers on the N64, and a very disappointing transition to 3D for Donkey Kong. So before Bananza comes out and hopefully redeems DK's third axis, it's time to look back at his 3D debut and figure out why it mostly doesn't work. Just to give this game the benefit of the doubt, I'll start this video off on a high note. On a technical level, this game is one of the most impressive on the N64. Rare absolutely understood the system way more than everyone else, and this game is a clear example of that. Nearly everything about DK64 is eye-catching, from its UI, to its colors, to its animations, which all give it so much personality. Sure, it may look low-res and blocky by modern standards, but you gotta understand, it was 1999, and even then, I still really like how this game looks. What I find especially impressive about DK64 is its lighting. It's easily one of the most well-lit games of the 5th generation, and it could honestly hold a candle to some games released in later gens. Comparing this game, as well as some of Rare's other N64 games, to those made by anyone else on the system is night and day. It's not just the visuals that carry DK64, as it also has some solid sound design. The xylophone that plays during transitions fills me with dopamine, the explosions, balloon pops, and other comparable sound effects are satisfying, and the voices everyone has are iconic. The high pitches Diddy, Tiny, and Lanky have are distinct enough to fit each character. Chunky's deep, burly, yet still soft voice suits him to a T, and DK's voice is just glorious. Between the okay he says when you save your game and the yeah he says when he pulls out I get such a kick out of how hilariously badass he sounds here. I also really like K. Rool's deep, booming voice in this game. It fits him so well. I seriously can't believe he has the same voice actor in this game as Banjo. Chris Sutherland is mad talented. We also can't ignore the chanting that plays when you get a gold banana, or the "oh, banana" they say when one appears, which is so iconic they're bringing it back in Bananza. And of course, you can't bring up the sounds and music of Donkey Kong 64 without bringing up the majesty that is the DK rap, or Da Banana Bunch internally, but you all know it as the DK rap. Words cannot describe how iconic and memorable this opening rap number is. Even if you haven't played this game, you know this rap. I know it by heart. I've memorized the whole thing since elementary school, almost a decade before I actually played the game it came from. Between its catchy beat and hilariously cheesy lyrics showing off each Kong's abilities, it's a rap even Kendrick would be too afraid to diss. As for the rest of the soundtrack, it's pretty good. I wouldn't put it on the same level as the country games, but it's alright, with some highlights like Frantic Factory, Fungi Forest, and Hideout Helm. I'm a big fan of Grant Kirkhope, and he certainly gives it his all here. I just personally don't really think his whimsical style fits Donkey Kong as well as it fits other things like Banjo or Mario and Rabbids. I personally tend to associate DK with more atmospheric, jungly music delivered by the likes of David Wise and Kenji Yamamoto. Still, it's a good soundtrack. Grant Kirkhope doesn't miss. We sure seem to be off to a good start. I mean, I've said nothing but nice things about the game so far. What's wrong with it? Well, this chapter just covered the presentation. We have yet to look at the actual gameplay, which... yeah. Donkey Kong 64 has a total of 5 different playable characters. Of course, there's Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong as expected, as well as 3 new faces with Tiny Kong, Lanky Kong, and Chunky Kong. Each of them have their own abilities and equipment, guiding them all to their own collectibles. This may seem promising, with the possibility of different playstyles for each Kong, until you take a closer look and notice the differences between their movesets, or lack thereof. They all have the same basic jumps and attacks, and their movement stats don't feel much different from each other, and it's not helped by this game's overall clunky controls, which is to be expected with the N64, but still. They're not completely devoid of unique moves, since Diddy can charge, Tiny can go through the air, Lanky can run up steep slopes on his hands, and Chunky can pick up a boulder with relative ease. While these abilities are nice, there's really not much else. Each of the 5 Kongs have 5 types of recurring gates only they can access, those being personal switches, ammo switches, music pads, personal pads, and magic barrels. The personal switches I can let slide since it's pretty clear that using a specific Kong for that certain section is the intent, but the others, not really. They each require the Kongs to buy something from a vendor using banana coins, those being abilities from Cranky, musical instruments, and extra health from Candy, and weapons from Funky. Yeah, they made Funky Kong a military man in this game. I don't want to see anyone arguing over who the strongest Kong is. Outside of combat, the weapons and instruments are really only used to activate character-specific switches. The abilities you get from Cranky sound cool until you realize that they can generally only be used at certain points, like from a pad or a barrel. Since you can't get certain tools and abilities until certain levels, they feel like artificial roadblocks you can't get past until you have what you need. Instead of presenting natural problems that make you think about which Kong's abilities to use, this game arbitrarily places down signs saying, go here with a specific Kong. Compared to something like Zelda or Banjo-Kazooie, where the problems feel well integrated and let you think you should probably come back with a new ability, this game just spells it out for you with no alternative. There are also multiple instances throughout the game where there are several Kong-specific switches all bunched up together, with their corresponding doors also close by, when most of their contents feel like they could have been solved by any Kong. And of course, you can only switch between Kongs in tag barrels, which tend to be placed a little far from some objectives, forcing you to go back and forth over and over again for many things. I know the fans made a mod that lets you switch Kongs anywhere, but that completely slipped my mind by the time I started my playthrough, so I had to play through the full game the old-fashioned way. Just the save states. If you're gonna make a non-linear sandbox game, why place so many arbitrary roadblocks that force the player to approach in a specific way? As for the abilities themselves, they're a mixed bag. The weapons and instruments all pretty much do the exact same things, so they're not worth going over. The barrel abilities are triggered by entering a barrel with the present Kong's face on it, and all of them consume crystal coconuts. Yeah, the MacGuffin from the cartoon. Donkey's barrel turns him invincible and lets him cross over hazards, which is very lazy and not used much throughout the game. Diddy's barrel gives him his trusty jetpack. For what's gone on to become a key trait of Diddy Kong, the jetpack feels awful to use in this game. It's clunky and slippery as hell, and you're bound to waste a lot of crystal coconuts, which by the way are not easy to come by. Tiny's barrel turns her, well, tiny, letting her move through small gaps. For some reason, they didn't properly adjust her speed when she shrinks down, so she feels painfully slow when she's small, which makes her barrel so annoying to use sometimes. Lanky's barrel lets him run fast. He gets this one late in the game, and it's not used much. And Chunky's barrel makes him grow big, which lets him pick up bigger and stronger stuff, on top of increasing his movement speed somehow. If the barrel abilities sound lame, don't worry, because the pad abilities are even worse. They're not all bad, since Donkey's Barrel Blast minigame can be fun, and Chunky's invisibility has some clever uses. But Diddy's Bounce and Lanky's Inflation both basically do the same thing, just forced into different locations by the pads. And Tiny's is just a personal warp pad. Is that the best you could come up with, Rare? The fundamental gameplay differences between each Kong are mostly minuscule, since their more unique traits are only available at certain points, which means you'll be switching Kongs so many times because the game forces you to. It doesn't feel fun or rewarding. It feels like the game is holding you by the tie. Now that we've gotten one of the core problems with this game out of the way, I think it's time we take a look at the levels we scrounged for bananas and other things. The levels of DK64 are quite the bloated bunch. To me, they all suffer from somewhat similar issues, being way too big and confusing and not taking enough advantage of their themes like Mario 64 or the Banjo games. Let's run through all the levels with gold bananas in them, starting with the hub world, the DK Isle. It's a perfectly functional hub area. It's small with not much going on, but it's fairly easy to navigate. Why is it so simple when the likes of Peach's Castle and Gruntilda's Lair are more dynamic with tons of different rooms? Well, to progress in this game, you must defeat the boss of the previous level, get its key, and use it on a lock on Kate Lumsey's cage to open up the next level or two. There's more to it, but I'll save that for the next chapter. Anyway, on to the actual levels, starting with Jungle Japes. As the first level, it's a jungle, DK's home biome. It thematically feels the most at home with Donkey Kong, while most of the other levels honestly feel like worse versions of Banjo levels. This jungle is primarily made to get you more accustomed to the game and its mechanics, especially since you only have Donkey when you first enter. Not for long though, as this is the level where you free Diddy. Well, the only Diddy who should be free, at least. It has a lot of trees, slopes, tunnels, a back area where you run around with Rambi. I don't really know what else to add. It's nothing special, but it's level 1. It does its job well enough in that regard. Angry Aztec makes me angry. Why is it in a desert when the actual Aztec Empire was in the mountains? Anyway, this level is very tedious and not that fun, with annoying quicksand and tons of arbitrary backtracking. Tiny and Lanky are unlocked here, and they both got sent to 2 of the level's 3 temples, all of which are very dull and repetitive. Especially the last one, which is the first instance of the 5 doors, 1 per Kong shtick. It's also where Diddy learns his jetpack, which is needed for multiple gold bananas. It sucks. I hate it. Next is Frantic Factory. A lot of people seem to hate this one, and I can see why. It's very dingy and depressing, with dark lighting and a somewhat confusing layout. Honestly, I kinda like this one. I like its somewhat unnerving atmosphere, its layout feels decently cohesive, its warp pads and vendors are mostly placed in good spots, and it has some fun platforming challenges. And then there's Chunky. He's locked up in a cage suspended above the storage room. With all 5 Kongs assembled at last, you can finally get everything in this level without having to backtrack from a later level. And it honestly feels pretty satisfying clearing out everything a level has to offer. Also, I don't really want to bring up the bosses since I honestly don't care for most of them, but this level's boss, Mad Jack, is honestly great. Maybe my favorite boss in the game. It seems like it's only uphill from here, right? Well, after backtracking to the first 2 worlds to get everything that was gatekept, you return to the main path and arrive at Gloomy Galleon. I hate this level. More than any other level I've played in a Donkey Kong game. More than Poison Pond, more than the Durian Kingdom, more than the entire cave world from Returns. How do you even manage that? 90% of this level takes place within this lifeless, empty lake. It's a nightmare to navigate, with only 1 water level switch, obtuse warp pads, and this game's generally terrible swimming controls. It's full of some of the game's most annoying collectibles, such as the ones where you have to swim back and forth to the sunken ship with each Kong, as well as this awful gold banana where you have to fly up the lighthouse with Diddy, play the guitar, swim to the other lake, enter this metal fish, and shoot it hard enough times within the time limit. If you mess up, you have to repeat the whole lengthy process all over again. This is such a monotonous, frustrating, and utterly miserable experience, and it's the moment when I finally realized that this game kinda sucks. And unfortunately, it doesn't get much better. Fungi Forest has such a cool idea, being an enchanted forest that changes depending on the time of day, until you realize that all of the day-night cycle effects are certain gates being open or closed and certain characters being awake. It's made even worse by the fact that there's only one place where you can switch the time of day, that being the cuckoo clock by the entrance. So you're gonna be warping back to this one spot to open a few gates over and over again. And let's not forget that 1 gold banana involving that f***ing bunny. You have to beat him in a race twice with Lanky to get his banana. The first race isn't too bad, but he cheats in the second race. You have no hope of winning without Lanky's super speed, which he doesn't learn until the next level, Crystal Caves. And even after coming back with it, the bunny still has an unfair advantage due to the barrel animation. Rare, did you playtest this game? Like, at all? Speaking of Crystal Caves, it's bad. It barely uses its ice/crystal theme beyond a few snow-themed buildings, making it feel like any other dank cave. It takes away from what could have been a serene atmosphere, and it's made even worse by the stalactites raining from the ceiling at random. What's even the point of this? It does nothing for the level except ruin the already lacking atmosphere and make it more annoying to play. It also has 2 segments with connected rooms separated for each Kong, with Donkey's room in the igloo featuring a moving spiky wall that can take out an entire melon in a single blow. What a great level! The last sandbox level in this game is Creepy Castle, which honestly might be the best level in the game. It has a decent layout with a great focus on verticality, its warp pads are placed in good spots, it uses all the Kong's abilities well, and it's topped off with a nice spooky atmosphere, fitting for a late game level. It's not perfect since the interior is a bit confusing to navigate, and I'm also not a fan of its boss, King Cutout, but overall, I really like Creepy Castle. Anyway, yeah, that's a rundown of this game's levels. Overall, the selection is not very good. I liked Creepy Castle and Frantic Factory and tolerated Jungle Japes, but I did not care for any of the other 4, especially Gloomy Galleon. Keep in mind that 4 out of 7 is over half. When that much of your game consists of monotony, there's a problem. It's made even worse when you consider just how long you'll spend in each world thanks to what is debatably this game's biggest flaw. Donkey Kong 64 has a wide variety of collectibles to find, with each type serving a different purpose. There's the color bananas, the banana coins, the gold bananas, the banana medals, the banana fairies, the boss keys, the battle crowns, the blueprints, and the Nintendo and Rare coins. Does that sound like a lot? Well, that's because it is. There are around 500 bananas, 25 gold bananas, 5 banana medals, and 1 boss key per main level. Doing the math and adding the collectibles I skipped over puts us at a grand total of over 3,800 collectibles within this game. It won the Guinness World Record for most collectibles in a platform game, which it still holds. Apparently, every time the designers showed off how much stuff the game had, Rare co-founder Tim Stamper demanded they add more, which led to the game being as bloated as it is. Was the demand for extra collectibles worth it? My sources say no. As I've implied before, the goal in each level is to defeat the boss, obtain its key, and use it on Lumsy's cage to open up the next levels. You open the door to the boss by finding a set number of bananas and feeding them to this hungry hippo. Sounds simple, right? Well, the bananas are separated by colors, and each Kong can only collect 1 color of banana. There are so many instances where you'll have the wrong Kong for a bunch of bananas, and it's annoying having to go all the way to the nearest tag barrel and back just for a few bananas. It's doubly so for the Kasplats and their blueprints. Any Kong can kill any Kasplat, but only the Kong that matches the blueprint's color can get it. It's so annoying. Anyway, once you approach the next level after Lumsy opens it up, you'll be stopped dead in your tracks by a bee locker, who won't let you into the level itself without sufficient gold bananas. Yeah, that's right. This game has 2 main objectives, and they're both shoved into the exact same purpose. Super Mario 64, by comparison, had both shiny collectibles and boss keys, but they were used on different doors. The star doors were larger in number, like the stars themselves, but they only opened up small portions of Peach's castle. The keys in their doors, of which there were 2, were only obtained from the Bowser fights, and they opened up much larger segments of the castle. Same goes for Banjo-Kazooie, with the notes being used to open more routes through Grunty's lair, and the Jiggies being used to open up the actual levels. The gold bananas are supposed to be this game's equivalent to Power Stars or Jiggies, but the way they're tacked on here just feels so much more forced than the natural progression of this game's brethren. It's a mistake that could have been easily fixed by just giving each boss a gold banana instead of a key. Hell, why not make it a grand gold banana that opens up the next world on top of adding to the gold banana count, like the grand stars from Super Mario Galaxy? So, out of the 200 of these roadblocks, how many do we need to beat the game? 100. That may sound reasonable, being half of the grand total, but I'd like you to know that the final level of the game, Hideout Helm, is on a time limit, one that gets extended with each blueprint you return to Snide, and with each returned blueprint, he awards you a gold banana. You're gonna need to return all 40 blueprints to give yourself the best chance at beating this behemoth of a final level. Let's subtract those 40 blueprint gold bananas, so out of the 160 left, you need 60. You can get every gold banana in the first 3 worlds, then only focus on the blueprints in the last 4, and that is enough to open up Hideout Helm. And you might as well do that due to how boring and lazy a lot of them feel to find. See what I mean when I say the gold bananas feel forced and unnecessary? And just when you think you're safe from the gatekeeping, once you've shut off the Blastomatic and can proceed to the final showdown, you're suddenly blocked off by 2 doors. The first door requires 4 battle crowns, which you get by stepping on special arena pads and beating the ensuing enemy gauntlets. These are fine challenges, but it was never made clear that these were required for progression until right at the end. If you have less than 3 crowns, since one of the pads is thankfully in this level, you have to go back to the previous levels to find their arena pads and beat them. Once you get past that door, you come face to face with another door that requires the mysterious Nintendo and Rareware coins to open. How do you get them? By playing the original Donkey Kong arcade game and Jetpack, Rare's first game. Having these here as throwbacks to Nintendo's and Rare's past is cool, but forcing it on us to beat the game just completely ruins it, especially with how they're implemented. To play Jetpack, you have to speak to Cranky after getting 15 banana medals. It's honestly not too bad, since later levels bosses require obscene amounts of bananas to unlock, and 5 of the medals are just given to you in Hideout Helm. If you still don't have enough, good luck finding the needed bananas. Thankfully, beating Cranky's high score is a fun challenge that isn't too demanding. Beating Donkey Kong twice, though, is a whole different story. You play it by paying banana coins at this one cabinet in Frantic Factory, and beating it the first time gets you a gold banana. Even though you're told about this special item you get for beating it again, you are never told that you needed to beat the main game until the time comes. So if you learn the hard way, you have to backtrack all the way from the end of Hideout Helm, through the hub world into this random ass room in Frantic Factory, and pray that you have enough banana coins to beat this clunky, dated arcade game in one go with 1 life. Who the hell approved this? Does this forced backtracking for 1 key item sound fun to you at all? I know I haven't mentioned the banana fairies yet, but I don't need to because they're thankfully completely optional. All they get you is more capacity for crystal coconuts, as well as the secret 201st gold banana, which gets you a 101% completion rate, which gets you a shitty bonus video after the credits. So yeah, this game has way too many collectibles, which are often forced on you at inopportune times, on top of being annoying to find. And that's not all, since in the cases of various gold bananas, uncovering them is half the challenge, because they may be further locked in bonus barrels, which require you to beat a bonus stage to open. There are some bonus stages here and there that aren't entered through barrels, mainly the races, but the majority are entered through barrels. Bonus stages have been a staple of Donkey Kong games for years, with some of them being required for 100%, and this game is no exception. Are the bonus stages in this game good? Now, to be fair, there are a few that I like. Kremlin Kosh, Peril Path Panic, and Teetering Turtle Trouble are all really fun games that test your reflex as well. Searchlight Seek isn't as good, but it's a fun test of your accuracy. Crazy Kong Clamor, while in a similar vein, starts off fine until it gets extremely strict with its time windows later in the game, to the point where it feels like you have to take shots in the dark. I'm not a fan of it. The rest of the minigames, however, are just kinda there at best and unbearably frustrating at worst. There are 3 types of maze minigames where you have to get to the end while following a certain condition, and they're all so dull and repetitive. Splish Splash Salvage would have been fine if this game's swimming wasn't an affront to God. Batty Barrel Bandit has no reason to make you line up the bananas so many times within the window. Busy Barrel Barrage can be won by just mashing the button and looking in a Kremling's general direction. Minecart Mayhem has way too few junctions, so you'll be sent in the direction of the TNT carts without stopping a ton. Speedy Swing Sortie and Big Bug Bash exist, and the minecart rides are way too demanding with their coin collecting, and it's hard to tell where to move if you don't want to get hit and lose any. And then there are the races. Holy shit, do I hate the races. It seems simple at first, being a 1v1 race to the finish, until you realize that crossing the finish line first, the point of a race, is not enough to win, as you also have to collect a predetermined number of coins, which are not only easy to miss with such slippery controls, but you also lose coins if you bump into a trap of your opponent, not helped by how scarce the coins can be. So if you get hit even just a few times, you might as well restart. The races with the Beetle in Aztec and Caves are easily the worst offenders. The slippery controls make it so you can easily miss coins or bump into the Beetle and lose lots of coins, or just fall off the edge and instantly lose. And as one final you, there's a big speed difference in the last stretch where the Beetle can overtake you at the last second, undoing all of your progress. What was the point of all this? Was it that hard to make a fair, fun race that doesn't force you to go out of your way for a finite amount of collectibles or pull the rug out from under you right at the end? Would you believe me if I told you that wasn't even the worst minigame? Oh no, that honor goes to the one whose name strikes fear into anyone who's played Donkey Kong 64. even its biggest fans. Beaver Bother. The objective is to control the claptrap and corral the naughties into the pit. Sounds easy, right? Well, they conveniently forgot to program the naughties' collision with the pit correctly, so they tend to get caught right on the edge without falling in most of the time, while you can fall in without any effort. Couple that with the naughties moving wherever the hell they want, it feels like a complete gamble as to whether or not you'll get one in, let alone 15 within a minute. And just to rub salt in the wound, you have to play this minigame 3 times for 100%. Once in Frantic Factory, and twice in Creepy Castle. Which, if you don't remember, are my 2 favorite levels in the game. Like, Rare, were you trying to ruin this game's few good levels with this train wreck? I get that you only had so much time to finish this game, but couldn't you have at least playtested it a little more so it's actually, you know, playable? I'm glad the bonus stages are here at all, since they spice up the otherwise extremely forgettable gold bananas a little bit, but due to how boring or poorly designed many of them are, I can't exactly say they're good. A bonus stage should be fun and endearing on top of challenging, not controller throwing agony like this. After all the repetitive, frustrating, artificial BS we've seen with this game, is it really worth seeing through to the end? Is there any kind of light at the end of this dark tunnel? You may have noticed that I've yet to properly talk about this game's final level, Hideout Helm. How is it? It's honestly pretty good. It's a surprisingly solid final level, especially for this game. For one, you're on a race against time to shut off the Blastomatic before it destroys the DK Isle, and the time limit gets extended based on how many blueprints you return to Snide, ranging from 10 minutes to 50. That paired with the dire music adds so much tension, and you really feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders as a result. The route to the generator and the challenge barrels you have to play to shut it down all do great jobs with testing your skills with each Kong, giving each one ample time in the spotlight. There are 2 things that bring the level down for me though. One, while I like the remix of the DK Isle theme used in the challenge barrels, it kinda takes away from the atmosphere the level is going for, and I really wish the main track played in them like it does over the tag barrel. The other is, of course, the final barriers that we already went over 2 chapters ago. Though this is honestly less of a problem with Hideout Helm itself and more of a problem with the game as a whole. At least they only show up after you've already shut off the Blastomatic, I guess. But wait a minute, even after you shut it off, you still need to deal with K. Rool. And how is the final showdown with the Kremlin King? It's actually really good. Donkey Kong as a franchise has always struggled with its bosses, especially its final bosses, so it's nice to see one of his lesser outings get the last big brawl right. I love how each fight with K. Rool in the 90s each had a different theme, with this fight being a boxing match where the Kongs take turns crushing K. Rool. Each Kong gets their own distinct phase, and their abilities are all used in very clever ways against Banjo-Kazooie. The cutscenes in between each phase with the critters trying to drag out the fight are hilarious, and I also just love how it ends. After getting TKO'd by Chunky, K. Rool wakes up and tries to sneak attack him, only to be distracted by a conveniently placed candy, leading to Funky Kong showing up from behind and quite literally giving him the boot. I wish Cranky somehow showed up too, so the whole Kong clan could have ganged up on K. Rool, but it is what it is. The fight can maybe go on for a little too long, and I also wish the time limit wasn't there, but otherwise, it's a really good final boss. After how hellish most of this game was, it was nice to see it end off on a high note, trying to make the best play with the cards it was given. But was it worth slogging through the whole game for? No. A good finale alone does not make a good piece of media when the rest of the experience is so tedious and frustrating. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull might have a cute ending, but that alone doesn't redeem the boring trite that was the rest of the movie. Just like how a good game can have bad parts, a bad game can have good parts. One aspect alone does not determine the quality of the overall product. It's all the aspects and how they mold together. And I think I've made it clear that this game's many aspects do not mold well together. I think I've made my case. This game sucks. Insert witty transition to the last part here. Donkey Kong 64 is an interesting breed. It boasts some of the best and worst aspects of Rare in their heyday, with top-tier presentation that uses the N64's hardware to its fullest, while also having some of the most baffling design choices and biting off way more than it could chew. A lot of N64 games haven't exactly stood the test of time, but even with some of the system's other games, I can still get past the jank and appreciate them for what they are. All I see in DK64 is just a bloated mess that pales in comparison to many other 3D platformers I've played, even those on the N64. If you like this game, that's great. Every game has its flaws, but they don't affect everyone the same way. They may completely bring down the experience for some, but that doesn't stop others from looking past them and having a good time. Trust me, Tears of the Kingdom is one of my favorite Zelda games. I would know. But even if you're a die-hard DK64 defender, you have to admit, it really sucks that this was DK's only fully 3D game for 25 years. Even putting aside the game's quality, that is way too long of a gap for a series with so much potential in the third dimension. I can kinda see why that is, with Rare getting enslaved by Microsoft and Nintendo struggling to find a developer available to make a new 3D installment, on top of collectathons and 3D mascot platformers in general mostly going dormant in the 2000s. I've seen some people claim that happened purely because this game was so bad when, like, no. Even after this, we still got a few new faces, like Jak and Daxter, Ratchet & Clank, and Sly Cooper. The phasing out of 3D platformers happened for more pressing reasons, like the graphical shifts and how edgy everyone wanted to be at the time, not because one game happened to suck ass. Regardless, I'm super glad to see Donkey Kong finally get another chance with a 3D platformer, and Bananza's looking like a really fun time. In the end, Donkey Kong 64 was, to me, a swing and a miss. It has good elements, but they're buried beneath a horde of repetitive gameplay, bloated, unfun levels, and so many baffling design choices. And it just made me wish I was playing one of the Banjo games instead. In fact, I finally got around to playing Banjo-Tooie after this, and despite its glaring problems, I had a much more fun time with it. I'm glad DK64 exists, as it did give us the DK rap, and there might be some fun to come with this game's modding scene, but yeah, I don't really plan on coming back to this game ever again. I don't even know why I made this video, considering how much this game's been ripped apart and how little I add to the big picture. All I want to say is, Nintendo, put Lanky Kong in Bananza, or at the very least, the Mario Movieverse. If Chunky got in, so can he.